Let's be real, veterans. Some claims are not easy to win. Sometimes filing a VA claim just does not go the way that you want it to go. The results do not go the way that you expect them to go. It's paperwork, it's deadlines, it's CMP exams, denials, appeals. And on top of that, the conditions that you're fighting through every single day. Now you have to articulate those conditions to the VA. And not only that, get them to approve the claim and accept the claim off the evidence that you're submitting. But here's the truth. The reality of it is there are some VA claims that are harder than others. In 2025, right now, the VA is moving the goalpost, right? They're making it harder to receive VA benefits. They're moving the goalpost further and further and further, okay? Not because you didn't serve, right? Is some claims harder than others, not because your pain is not real, but because the VA system requires evidence, connection, and consistency. That's the real facts that most vets were never taught. Maybe that's you, how to provide the VA. And that's exactly why I'm making this live stream right now. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell. Share this out with someone that can use this information. We are veterans serving veterans, and we want you to get the benefits that you deserve. Okay. Today, I'm breaking down 5 of the hardest VA claims to get approved. And more importantly, I'm going to walk you through why they're hard, what evidence you need, give you the cheat codes to get these things connected, and how you can fight back and win your appeals, denials, or anything that you're going through. Whether you are just starting your claim, whether you're sitting on a denial letter, or helping a fellow vet navigate this process, right? I want to make sure that this episode gives you clarity, strategy, and confidence to move forward. Very important. So grab your notepad, turn up the volume, and settle in, because I'm about to pull back the curtain on some of the toughest VA claims out there and how you can absolutely beat the odds. Okay. So some VA claims are uniquely tough to win. Okay. Denials usually trace to one gap. Okay. They are mainly missing a clear current diagnosis, in service treatment, event, or aggravation, and a strong medical nexus letter, meaning a link tying them together. Okay. Plus, sometimes veterans just have weak documentation of functional impact. Remember, the VA needs to know, how are you impacted occupationally and socially, in the severity of your condition, veterans, right? But remember this, keep fighting, keep going. There are not any unprovable VA claims, okay? Winning requires targeted evidence, okay? Be strategic with what you're doing. If you need the help, get the help that you need. Very important, okay? And keep in mind that your medical evidence, veterans, wins and can absolutely win your claim, okay? Very important. So the number one claim that I have to get approved, and it's tough, and a lot of veterans get confused between this and tinnitus, is hearing loss, and it getting rated above 0%. It's very hard, right? VA ratings for hearing loss are based on strict numbers from a hearing test known as your audiogram, specifically pure tone averages, okay, and Maryland CNC word recognition scores, veterans. That means you can struggle to hear conversations, right? Whatever you may be going through, TV, radio chatter, still score 0% because your results do not fit the VA's rating tables. Age-related changes in post-service noise exposure make it even tougher to link directly to service. Many veterans ask this question: why am I 0% for my hearing loss? I didn't even get rated for my hearing loss, right? That is why, because the audiogram and the numbers are very tough to meet. Okay. So to get your claim approved, you need to use a VA compliant hearing test, Maryland CNC, and no hearing aids. If you go to your CMP exam, you should not be wearing hearing aids. You need to have your audiologist describe how your hearing loss impacts and affects your work, veterans. Okay. How it impacts your safety, how it impacts daily conversations, communication. How are you impacted occupationally and socially by your hearing in your relationships, your marriage? A buddy statement is not going to hurt. Get it from your wife. Let her know, man, my husband's deaf, or from your husband saying, my wife does not hear me clearly due to my hearing loss, due to your hearing loss. Okay. Very important. So you need to submit an MOS noise exposure summary and lay statements again, buddy statements from family, coworkers, those closest to you that know you and can see how you are impacted by your hearing loss. Very important. Remember, your DD214 is a cheat code. Your job is it low noise, mid noise, or on the high noise exposure list. Okay. For example, high noise exposure would be if you were on the flight line, if you were a mechanic, right? If you were a flight line crew chief with documented jet noise, okay? Very important. If your spouse can write about how your conversations are tough, she can't hear you or he can't hear you, your family, just make sure you don't need to over elaborate anything. Just make sure that you're clear and concise on your statements. Okay. Just get to the point and let them know how you're impacted occupationally and socially, and your family members as well. Let the VA know how you're impacted. But hearing loss is a tough one. It is. And it's very hard to get it above 0%. Okay. Very, very important to understand that. Okay. Number two on my list is sleep apnea, either direct or secondary. It is one of the biggest claims that veterans ask about. They ask me all the time about sleep apnea, and they tell me that they got sleep apnea. The big question to this, the big key, veterans, is were you diagnosed? Did you have a sleep study? And were you issued a CPAP machine while on active duty or after you got out of service? Okay. It's very, very hard because sleep apnea, many veterans do not get a sleep study done, and it does not show up in your active duty medical record documentation. If you're a guard or reserves, okay, a part-time soldier or service member, then it's hard because you're working a civilian job and you're not full-time on duty most of the time. So then now you have to go up in battle against proving to the VA how your sleep apnea is impacted by by the service. Okay. So sleep apnea rarely shows up in your service treatment records. Most vets don't get a sleep study until years later. And what that does is that creates a gap. And then the VA uses that to deny that. If you get denied, then you need to figure out, how can I secondary this sleep apnea and what can I secondary it to? Sometimes people have lumbosacral strain and radiculopathy and they want to secondary their sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a breathing respiratory issue. Okay. You're having a hard time breathing at night. You have apnea. Okay. That's why that sleep study is so important. Okay. So if you're going to do something secondary, you need to have a nexus letter, a DBQ, and a diagnosis. But secondary conditions, PTSD, rhinitis, meds, or weight gain due to the meds, are often ignored without clear medical explanation. Very important. Get your claim approved, get a current sleep study and CPAP documentation. Submit your sleep study results. Use buddy statements describing snoring, gasping, or fatigue during service. Your spouse can do this again. Ask a doctor if they can to link your OSA to service factors, nasal obstruction, PTSD meds, whatever it may be. Okay. Let me give you an example. If you are a Gulf War, Iraq veteran, Afghanistan veteran, if you're in Vietnam, exposure on Agent Orange, right? You can get buddy statements about your snoring, about your ear, nose, and throat, maybe sinusitis, rhinitis diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea, right? And maybe a pulmonologist nexus tying your sleep apnea to allergic rhinitis, which was developed in service. Okay. That can put you in the best position to win your claim, and make sure that you are complaining to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Make sure that you are complaining to your primary care doctor if it's not the VA, or to your sleep doctor, and let them know I'm impacted. I'm not sleeping well. But having that CPAP issued is very important to get that 50% rating. Make sure that you have a current sleep study. If it's way outdated, make sure that you get a new one. Very, very, very important to end up doing that. Okay. So that is number 2 on my list, is sleep apnea, and why it's very, very difficult to get. Okay. Number 3 on my list is going to be chronic pain. Okay. Pain alone can now qualify as a disability if it causes functional loss. It did not used to be able to do such, but most records fail to show that impact. Very important. Vague pain, basically a 6 or 7 out of 10, notes don't prove functional impact or impairment, and gaps in your treatment complaints weaken the credibility of your claim. So to get a chronic pain claim approved, I recommend secondarying it to a mental health as a mental health claim. Okay. You need to document specific limits: lifting, walking, working, sleeping. What is impacted by your pain? Okay. That's why I recommend doing a mental health claim with this. Maintain consistent treatment and therapy notes. Get a provider to state your pain limits and how it impacts your life occupationally and socially, and your ability to function normally. Very, very, very important. So if you're a veteran with neck or back pain, right? If you've been rucking and you have no MRI diagnosis, but your primary care doctor notes that you have a reduced range of motion and you're constantly talking about your pain and you have missed work, and you can explain how you're impacted occupationally and socially, so your functional loss and how it's tied to service and what caused it, then you can win that claim. If you're going to do a secondary claim for the chronic pain, such as mental health, maybe your pain is impacting your mood or your mental health, you need a nexus DBQ diagnosis. If you need that, reach out. We can put you in the best position to make sure that you get the help that you need. Okay. And the doctors are not just going to whip up something and throw mud at the wall. Very important. So chronic pain is number 3. Very hard. The VA does not really, it's hard to rate for pain, but there are other things that you can do through the pain. Okay. Other claims that you can file because of your pain as well too. So very, very, very important to understand that. Number 4 is going to be mild TBI residuals years later. Why is it hard? Because symptoms like headaches, irritability, and poor concentration overlap with PTSD or depression. The Department of Veterans Affairs, the examiners frequently lump everything together. They frequently do that, right? They underrate you, right? They will couple things together without you even knowing it, or miss cognitive deficits. Okay. So to get your claim approved, request a TBI specific CMP exam, veterans, right? With each diagnostic code 8045 rated separately. Include neuropsych testing and statements showing memory or focus issues. Okay. Again, include neuropsych testing and statements showing memory or focus issues. Document the original injury and LOD report. That's a line of duty report, deployment note, any medical records, sick call slips, ER visits are key to winning a mild TBI and residual many years later. The VA is going, why didn't you complain about it? Then, and it's not enough to just say, I sucked it up, I dealt with it, I just minimized, I didn't know, you know, it's tough. So you got to be very thorough with the evidence that you do submit. So mild TBI residuals years later is number 4 on my list. That is that is what you need, and those are some of the cheat codes to getting your claim approved as well too. But it is very, very, very important. Okay. Um, and then the next thing is going to be dental claims for compensation. Okay. Not treatment. Most dental conditions qualify for treatment only, not compensation. Okay. Most dental conditions qualify for treatment only, not compensation, unless there's bone loss, from trauma, or maybe you have TMJ and it's caused jaw damage. VA denies payment claims. Okay, very important. To get a claim approved for dental claims for compensation, not treatment, you must prove traumatic injury, basically combat wound, fall, explosion, accident, something that happened. You've got to you got to prove the traumatic injury that occurred to cause that dental plane or tooth or teeth incident. You need to submit dental imaging or x-raying showing bone or structural loss. Okay. If not eligible for compensation, apply for class 1 or 2 dental treatment benefits. Very, very important. So let's say you're on active duty or you were deployed, your truck got an IED blast, or you had a training accident which caused a jaw fracture and tooth loss. Your x-rays or MRI confirm bone loss, then you could get approved for dental compensation. Very, very, very important to understand that. So those are my top 5 claims to round out. Number 1, hearing loss. Very difficult. Remember, hearing loss is separate from tinnitus. Okay. Very important to understand that. Number 2, sleep apnea, direct or secondary. A lot of veterans don't get that diagnosed while on active duty, and it's very hard for Guard or Reserve to prove that service caused it because they're mainly participating on the weekends. Okay, very difficult. So you can get it, and if you're going to do it secondary, you need to have a Nexus letter DBQ diagnosis and a primary service connected condition to tie the sleep apnea to as well. Okay. Very, very important to understand that. Number 3 is chronic pain. Very, very difficult. Pain alone can qualify as a disability if it causes functional loss. I recommend, again, doing something secondary. And my go-to would be mental health if you're impacted that way. Very, very important to understand that. Mild TBI residuals years later, trying to prove traumatic brain injury can be very tough. And also, TBI is one of those conditions that the VA likes to reduce and play around with people with 100%. And then rounding it out, number 5, dental claims for compensation, not treatment. Okay. Most denial conditions qualify for treatment only, not compensation, veterans. So I hope that this helps you guys. These are 5 claims, some of the hardest claims to get approved and why they're hard to get approved. Okay. So I hope that this helps you out. Like, subscribe, share this out with someone that can use this information. And look, we care about you. If you need help, reach out to us. We are here. We are honest, integral, ethical. We want to make sure you're in the best position to win your claim. If you need a Nexus letter or DBQ, I advise you to reach out, because the doctors that we have are not just going to whip up something. They are separate from us. They want to do things the right way. It's just, we want to make sure that you're in the best position to get the benefits that you can, honestly, integrally, and ethically. Okay. So very important to understand that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Share this out with someone that can use this information and stay in the fight. Thank you for your service to our country, and keep going. Do not give up.